Hey guys, Mana here, bringing you another episode of More Dots. This is episode 8, and it's going to be a little quicker than usual for reasons that I may or may not explain at the end of this video. So, first question from DTX Forever. Now that we know what the stats on the caster legendary are, why does it have crit? I don't know why Blizzard chose to make it have crit over haste. What's your opinion? Alright, so first of all, this staff is pretty much guaranteed to be best in slot for all caster DPS. It really doesn't matter what your stat priorities are, the staff is going to be best in slot for you. Secondary stats, they just aren't anywhere near as strong as intellect and spell power, and if you've seen this thing, you know it's got a stupid amount of it. So here's the thing, would I have preferred it to have haste instead of crit? Sure, you got me. I would have preferred it to have haste instead of crit. But the DPS difference between swapping those two stats around is nothing when you just look at all the friggin' intellect this friggin' staff has. It's crazy. It has so much intellect and no one is paying attention to that. It's also got a proc that we don't even know what it really does yet, and it's also going to be insane. Yeah, like, people are paying way too much attention to the secondary stats. Like, Blizzard can make it strength instead of crit, and it'll still be best in slot for most casters. And really, let's not forget that we can also reforge it to whatever we want, so... yeah, like, just... if you get this thing, you should be happy and not complain about the crit. Alright, so... next question from 40 Angry Bears. Will you be updating the Destruction and Demonology guides? Destruction, not until 4.2. Demonology, I will be updating it in the next weeks. Not this week, though, for reasons I'll explain later on. Alright, so next question from someone who asked me to call them Captain Awesome, so that's what I'll do. From Captain Awesome, when Blizzard first introduced the Soulburn mechanic, it seemed like it was going to play a very important part in how Warlocks played, but that doesn't seem to be the case. Am I missing something, or is Soulburn really just a disappointment? So, to be honest, you're not really all that far off. I've talked about this to some degree before, but basically, as it stands, Soulburn is incomplete. It just has to be. There's no other reason for it to be the way it is besides it being incomplete. There's a few things that very good Warlocks can make practical use of, like Soulburn plus Teleport, but as for using it throughout the fight to quote-unquote do something cool, as Blizzard said in BlizzCon, I think it was, no, not really. There's very, very little you can do with Soulburn. The mechanic is just dull right now. The two main things that you could do with it are Soulburn Soulfires for Demo and Destro, and then Soulburn Seed of Corruption, which is obviously just Affliction. And then the problem is that Soulburn Seed of Corruption trivializes the Soul Shard mechanic. Originally, it was meant to be 3 shards per fight that we could Soulburn at key moments to quote-unquote do cool things, but with Soulburn Seed of Corruption, Affliction can have as many Soul Shards as it wants. But then I guess the question becomes, why would you even want that, because it's a nearly worthless class mechanic. So yeah, Blizzard really needs to do something about Soulburn because it's very, very disappointing, at least to me. Alright, last question from FF and ME fan. What do you think of the tier 12 set? Also, what's your favorite tier set? Alright, so I'm not really sure if you're talking about the set bonuses or if you're talking about the looks, so I'm going to talk about both of them. The set bonuses are a lot better than tier 11. It'll depend on how much the Fiery Imp does, the 2-piece. But the 4-piece definitely looks way, way better than what we've had so far. So yeah, I'm excited about that. As for the looks, it's not bad. I don't like the helm. It's probably because like the little spider legs on the side and like the spider webbing that runs down the neck onto like the top of the chest. It looks like chainmail. I'm not really feeling that. So yeah, it's definitely not bad. It's probably better than tier 11 at least. So yeah, I'm not that into it, but it could have been a lot worse at least. Alright, so as for my favorite tier sets, I'm going to have them popping up right now as I talk about a couple things, in order of most favorite to least favorite. So, alright, so here we go. Alright, so last week I didn't really have a guide, and that's because I made one, but then I rewatched it, and I noticed that about 80% of the content I had already talked about before in some of my other guides, like in my Maximizing Your Damage guide, my Keybind guide, and like to a lesser degree my UI guide. So I didn't really want to upload it because it just looked like a bunch of copy-paste. But I mean, if you guys really want to see it, I can upload it. Just be warned, it's not really all that original. Also, I'm going to be on vacation for the next 2 weeks, which means no rating and no videos. So I do apologize, but do feel free to continue sending in questions because honestly, I do read and respond to all of it. Not all of it, but I do read and respond to most of it. I read and I respond to most of it. I read all of it and I respond to most of it. Alright, there we go. As always, if you guys have any questions, feel free to send me a private message and I will discuss it on the next episode of More Dots if it is in fact interesting and or funny. So yeah. Alright, so that's going to wrap up this episode. As always, if you enjoyed what you saw, feel free to like and to subscribe. Later, guys.